Welcome to the 2022 Nautilus Book Awards Author Spotlight Series. I'm your host, Christine Upchurch. Now celebrating 22 years of honoring better books for a better world, Nautilus Book Awards continues to embrace books from a wide spectrum in the publishing industry. Books which radiate hope and wisdom. Books which nurture our inner connection and inspire us to connect with others as individuals, as communities, and as planetary citizens. This is a vast conversation, one which is more crucial today than ever before. Today, we are focusing our spotlight on author and Gold Award winner, Kate Sullivan, who has won for her book entitled Eala, Mother Swan, La Madre Cisne. She has won her Gold Award in the category of Children's Illustrated Fiction, and the illustrator is Paige Ozma Ashmore. Kate Sullivan has an MA, MFA, and PhD. She's an award-winning, best-selling author. She likes to focus on mythology and folklore in the modern age. Dr. Sullivan obtained her BA with honors from Hollins University, her master's and doctorate degrees in literature from Columbia University and King's College London. She is known for her award-winning children's series, including Sparkle and the Gift and Sparkle and the Light. Her best-selling book, A Story of Becoming, won 18 literary awards. She has won over 60 literary awards total, and this is her fourth Nautilus Book Awards. And again, the book is entitled Eala, Mother Swan, La Madre Cisne, and she won in the Children's Illustrated Fiction. Welcome, Ayn, and congratulations on another Gold Award.
Thank you. I'm thrilled. Three wonderful children's book awards. I love it. Yes. And also an adult book too. So I love the Nautilus Book Awards, Better Books for a Better World. They always fantastic books to read and listen to. Yeah.
And I love that you like to focus on children's literature, among others. But I think in terms of, as a mother who's raised children, how important the books are to our young people, what impressions they leave, sometimes for a lifetime. Why in your writing have you chosen children's literature?
Well, I have a boy and a girl, and I wrote some of them for my daughter, Catherine, and some for my son, William. This one is dedicated to William. But I have each year, actually, for ever since they were born, I would take them on quests. So we would actually go out into nature and we would find special trees that seemed magical, or we would find places where stories were told that lived in the landscape. In fact, with this one, Eala, it came to me while we were standing in Ireland at the Boyne River, and there's a place called the Dragon's Mouth where it bends, and this is where Care and Angus Og apparently turned into swans and were able to meet in the fairy world. So anyways, that was the first inspiration behind this book. And my kids, I think they say to me now, they're both in college now, but they say, I have this piece of magic in me, this light, this spark. And I think it's really important that all people carry this, that all people know that we're each an amazing part of this world and we matter.
And what a legacy, what a message to give to children, because I think about the stresses in the world and how difficult it must be to be a child growing up these days. And to have these messages about becoming more and tapping into more of ourselves, I think is incredibly important. So thank you for writing these books. And I know that you not only focusing on these inspirational messages, but you like folk and fairy tales. Why is that?
So years ago, I was given an overseas research award to King's College London, and the deal was that I had to work on the stories of Lady Gregory. I accepted. I didn't know who she was. So I found myself walking around in Ireland gathering folklore and fairy tales. And I was excited, number one, because this whole world opened up in which there's a lot of equality. That's one of the things that I love about the Celtic world, is that women are really powerful and men are really powerful, and together they lead. And so anyway, I love that about the Celtic world and the Celtic stories. But the other thing that I think is very important that the bards keep alive, so I'm in the tradition of the bard, is that when we're in difficult times, the bard is supposed to keep the light alive. They're the one that remembers the divine spark that's in the celestial realms, but it's also in matter. It's in this realm. It's in our body, and it's in our relationships. And so the bard reminds us to keep the sparkle going and to believe in a future in which we can all thrive.
That's beautiful. One of the things I was struck by with this book is that it's in 2 different languages. You've also included Spanish in the book. Why did you choose to make it bilingual?
Well, most of my stories have been in the Western world. They've taken place in the Western world. And my friend, Marcella Benson, who was also the artistic director of this book, said, she's from South America. She's from Argentina. She said, why don't we make it a global story? Why don't we do it in Spanish too? And let's make the protagonist a little more South American. I said, I think that's a great idea. So now we have this blend of the Celtic and the South American worlds coming together. So it's, and North America, I'm in North America. So the worlds are coming together in this book. And I feel that it starts to open up another audience, a global audience. And interesting about the South American mindset, according to Marcella Benson, is they're very open to magic, and they're very open to I guess it's not even magic. It's really the supernatural. They love the supernatural. And so we had a lot of fun also with illustrator Paige. Paige has a Spanish background. And so we collaborated to bring a global story, one that's anybody can read. So anyway, that was that idea, to take it out of just the Celtic world and onto a global stage.
I love that. And as somebody who learned Spanish a long time ago, I really enjoyed seeing the same thing written out in Spanish, because it could remind me of, how to speak the language. And I think about children growing up who might not be exposed to that other language, whether it's Spanish speaking children, in English or vice versa, and how wonderful it is that both of those are on each page, so you can read it in 2 different languages.
Yeah, I do think it helps. When we were living in France, like one of the ways that we learned French was to turn on children's videos, the stories that we knew, and we could recite it along with it. And so this is another way I feel with the Eala, that if maybe one person speaks Spanish and the other speaks English, you can read it together, or you can learn the languages simultaneously. So it's fun. I've heard a lot of people say that they enjoy learning a new language or deepening their language abilities together.
Would you read us some of the book, please?
Oh, yeah, I would love to. Okay, so let me tell you a little bit about Eala. It's a story of a boy who is starting to forget who he is. The world seems difficult and he's feeling sad. But his grandmother has told him about this magical swan. And so he thinks that maybe what he should do is go and try to find her. So he picks a day when the wind is just right. You say in the Celtic world, they're color winds. They appear here in the tales. But when the winds are just right, you can go and find your good fortune. The white wind takes you to your good fortune. So on this particular day, he finds the bend in the river and the swans are there and they're just getting ready to take off and they're flying into the green wind. And he goes, oh no, they're going into the west. I'm going to completely lose my ability to get in touch with this magic. But Eala sees the boy and she circles back around and she agrees to take him flying between the worlds. Now, flying between the worlds is a real gift. And if you look up at night, you can see a constellation called Cygnus. And that's the one way that you can fly into the stars. But in the book, Eala lets the boy ride on her back. And when she does that, when she flies through the world between the crack of day and night, she turns black. And that's when she's magical. And I'll start here. And here's an illustration. This is when she's turned black. And she's between the sun and the moon. And it goes, just as the sun sank below the horizon, Mother Swan flapped her great wings, and they flew between the crack of night and day. The boy held tight. As they flew out into the sky, he noticed that the swan's feathers had magically turned black. All night they flew between the songs of the stars, and the boy found pieces of his soul that he had lost. He invited them back into his heart. When he heard music, he sang with it. Soon he remembered his own song that had been with him since before the day he was born. But he had forgotten it. After he began to sing, he felt whole again, and Mother Swan realized Hugo had found what he needed. So she turned south and rode the glorious white wind. So here's Mother Swan, and they're turning to ride the white wind of good fortune. The boy sang out with joy because he remembered what it was like to feel fully alive and part of all that exists. As the first rays of dawn began to shine on the world, he saw sparkles like gemstones and diamonds. He touched these colors and they became part of him. These are your treasures, your true gifts, said Mother Swan. Never forget the ancient magic. And here he is. If you can see it, his heart is filled with all the colors of the rainbow, and he's remembering his magic, the love that lives in his heart, the thing that sustains us through this lifetime and perhaps all other lifetimes. The sun was starting to rise over the river, and Mother Swan circled once. Then as the first golden rays of the sun flashed across the water, the swan caught the purple wind of the east. At that moment, she turned white again, and they landed gracefully on the water. The boy was smiling, and he noticed that his cuts and bruises were healed. In his right hand, he held the feather of a black swan. The boy slipped off Eala's back onto the edge of the river. I'll never forget you, he said. And then this is an image of the swan turning white. And then he has his little black feather. Then before the sun had risen, Mother Swan flapped her great wings and spiraled upwards 3 times, disappearing into the golden light of a new day. And I always like to tell children when I'm reading that we can get stuck in a circle. We can get stuck somewhere in our self or in our psyche, in our consciousness. But when we spiral, when we turn and spiral and look at the stars, we free ourselves. So this is the boy with the swan feather, and he's thinking about it, and he's thinking about his new life. And then I just ended here. At night, when the sky is clear, if you look at the constellation Cygnus, you might just see the black swan flying. And if you do, you are magic.
I love that. It's such a beautiful story. In the story, you were just reading the part where you talk about him finding the lost pieces of his soul. What do you mean by that?
Have you ever heard of this wonderful saint, Hildegard de Bingen, Hildegard von Bingen? She was an 11th century saint who heard the music of the spheres, and she wrote a lot of symphonies around this. And of course, later, all kinds of musicians have continued to write about the songs of the stars and how the movement of the spheres interacts with us. And so my feeling is that, I mean, this is very imaginative and out there, but my feeling, I don't know if you've ever just laid under the stars at night and just looked at all of these thousands, millions of stars and just felt your connection to this place, this world, that you're a part of that sparkle, part of the sparkle of the cosmos. And when you do feel that, you light up. It's like, wow, I'm actually here for a reason. I have a mission and purpose. I have a song to sing, so I need to get on with it.
One of the things I found interesting, and I know that as an author, you're very intentional with your story. There's a brief reference to something about the boy Hugo that indicates that he's bullied, perhaps by other kids or at school. Why did you include that little bit?
I feel like when we go on a quest, most of my stories are about going on a quest to find something. My adult series is about Legends of the Grail. So they're always questing for the Holy Grail, which is wholeness, also wholeness. But the thing is, usually something prompts you to go looking for it. Because if you're just, everything's fine and life is good, you just carry on in the surface and the shallows of life. But if for some reason you suffer, if you've lost something, you've been hurt, or you just feel sad, that prompts you to go out and look at the stars at night, or to go find that bend in the river where apparently there's a magic swan, or to do something that's out of the ordinary. So this thing with Hugo, who's been teased and bullied, prompts him to go and find out what the truth is for himself. And once he knows what the truth is, doesn't matter what anyone says to him, because he knows. And I think that's a really great message for children, because if you're really clear about who you are and your heart and what lives in your heart, really doesn't matter what anyone says, because you're clear about your word and your direction. And it's important in this day and age to be clear about who you are and where you're going.
Absolutely. And I think it's great that you're giving this message to young children, because I think that for many people, they don't question truly who they are and where they're going until well into adulthood. So it seems that the earlier we can connect with that journey, that question, and the realization of who we are, the better off the world will be.
It's true. But I also remember my daughter in particular, when she was really little, I'd put she's Scottish, she's half Scottish, and I would put her little suit on, and we would go out to stone circles. And she was very clear about how the stone circles connected to the stars. I mean, probably much more clear when she was 2 or 3 than she is now. I think children have this wonderful, open imagination. And, this children's stories are good for adults too, because I think it's the adults that disconnect more so than the children.